What happens when the world's funniest cartoon decides to scare you instead of make you laugh? The Simpsons is known for satire and slapstick, but hidden between the jokes are episodes that creep in slowly, turning lighthearted stories into unsettling nightmares. Today, we're counting down 5 of the most terrifying episodes ever made, and we're starting with a summer in Springfield that ends in fear, paranoia, and a possible murder next door. This is Bart of Darkness. It should have been the perfect summer. The sun was blazing, the air was thick, and Springfield was melting under the kind of heat that makes the pavement shimmer. Inside the Simpson house, the family was desperately trying to stay cool. Fans in every room sitting in bathing suits, even cracking open the fridge for a blast of chilled air. Then, like a mirage in the desert, the sound of the ice cream truck drifted in. Bart and Lisa bolted to the street, only to find their dreams crushed. No ice cream left. But just as hope seemed lost, the pool mobile arrived, offering a refreshing escape. For one day only. That one taste of relief was enough to spark an idea. If they couldn't rely on the pool mobile, they'd get their own pool. And after some convincing, Homer gave in, building one in the backyard. Within hours, it became the hangout spot for every kid in Springfield. But while Lisa enjoyed her new social status, Bart's summer took a nosedive. Trying to impress the crowd, he climbed to the top of the treehouse, ready for a big jump into the pool. That's when Nelson distracted him with the old, "Your epidermis is showing" joke. Bart lost his footing, fell hard, and broke his leg. Now stuck in a cast, confined to his room and forgotten by his friends, Bart sank into isolation. His only company? A telescope Lisa gave him to pass the time. At first, he lazily scanned the stars and neighboring houses, but then he saw something. A scream, a flash of movement, and Ned Flanders in a panic saying the words, "I've killed her." That was all it took for Bart's imagination to spiral. The next day, he spotted Ned digging in the yard, muttering to himself about being a murderer. Soon after, Bart overheard Rod and Todd talking about their mother being with God and how they'd join her one day. For Bart, the case was solved. Ned Flanders had killed Maude. He tried to tell his parents. They didn't believe him. He asked Lisa to investigate. She agreed, creeping into the Flanders house. Opening the fridge, she froze at the sight of a bag labeled "human head." Only it was lettuce. Just as Lisa was about to leave, Ned came home, axe in hand. Trapped in the attic, Lisa braced for the worst, and Bart, hobbling on his cast, tried to reach her in time. The moment came. Ned raised the axe and calmly put it back in its holder. Maude wasn't dead. She'd been away at Bible camp. The only victim was her favorite ficus plant. In the end, Bart's entire nightmare had been a misunderstanding, the result of bad timing, a restless mind, and way too much time alone. But while Bart's terror turned out to be harmless, the next story puts the danger right inside the Simpson home, and the villain actually gets away. It starts like any other morning in the Simpson household, loud, messy, and chaotic. But while everyone else rushes around, Marge is somewhere else entirely. Not physically, she's standing in the kitchen, but mentally she's drifting, distant, and clearly unhappy. She watches the kids snatch money from her wallet instead of taking the lunches she's prepared. Homer breezes past her, late for work, and when she leans in for a kiss, he drains her coffee instead. Feeling unappreciated, Marge calls into a late-night radio therapist who wastes no time planting a dangerous seed. Homer isn't treating her like a wife, he's treating her like a mother, and if he doesn't change, she should leave. What Marge doesn't know is that Homer hears the entire thing at work. Panicking, he heads to Moe's, where even Moe agrees that he's a pig, but offers a solution. Homer should wine and dine her, buy flowers, and book a romantic night away. It's a good plan, except they need a babysitter, and that's where things take a chilling turn. They hire a woman named Miss Botts. She's polite, professional, and completely untrustworthy. As soon as Homer and Marge are gone, Bart catches a news bulletin about the babysitter bandit, a dangerous criminal who ties up children and robs families blind. The photo on the screen? Their babysitter? Bart and Lisa try to act casual, but Miss Botts already has a rope in her hands. Within minutes, she's tied them up, turned on the TV, and started tearing through the house. The kid's only hope? Maggie. The baby quietly frees them, and together they lure Miss Botts into a trap. Bart knocks her out cold with a baseball bat, and they tie her up. It's a perfect rescue, until Homer and Marge come home, see their babysitter bound and gagged, and assume their children are the villains. They untie Miss Botts, apologize profusely, and even pay her triple to avoid pressing charges. Miss Botts leaves smiling, still free, still dangerous, and out there, ready for her next victim. At least Bart and Lisa escaped. But in our next story, the whole family ends up on death row for a crime they didn't commit. It begins with what should have been a sweet anniversary surprise. Homer builds Marge a koi pond in the backyard, a peaceful little getaway where she and Lisa can relax. But their quiet moment is shattered by a horrific sound, an ear-piercing scream coming from the water. It's not a person, it's a bug, an endangered screamer pillar. And according to the EPA, because it's chosen their backyard as its home, it's now the Simpson family's responsibility. Feeding it, protecting it, even reading it bedtime stories. The constant screaming drives Homer insane. One night, he accidentally crushes it under a book and, in a panic, tries to bury it. But the bug survives, and Homer is still charged with attempted insecticide. His sentence? Community service. That's how he meets Mrs. Bellamy, an elderly woman living alone in a large, creepy house. At first, she's harmless, even a little charming. But soon she's calling him constantly for help, mowing her lawn, fixing her curtains, and running errands. Then she ropes Marge into it too. Dressed as a maid and butler, they serve her and her friends, slowly realizing they've become her personal servants. And then she screams. They rush in to find Mrs. Bellamy lying on the floor, scissors in her back. A man in the room escapes out the window with her diamond necklace. The police arrive. They check her will, and apparently she'd recently changed it to leave $50,000 to the Simpsons. In an instant, Homer and Marge go from witnesses to prime suspects. Once the news spreads, they're shunned, even by Moe's bar and the local church. The final blow comes when the police search their home and find Maggie holding the stolen necklace. Their trial is a disaster. Guilty on all counts, sentenced to death. In a bleak, gut-punch scene, Homer and Marge sit in their cells thinking about all the life moments they'll miss. Their kids growing up, seeing grandkids, growing old together. The next morning, Homer is marched to the electric chair, the switch is thrown, and then laughter. It's all revealed to be an elaborate hidden camera prank for the show Frame Up. Mrs. Bellamy is fine. The killer was an actor. Even Carmen Electra was in on it. The Simpsons are free, but Homer, he's furious because no prank, no matter how well planned, should end with a man strapped to an electric chair. But while this was all just a cruel joke, our next episode digs up a trauma from Homer's childhood that's anything but funny. It starts with something as innocent as grocery shopping. Marge grabs the wrong brand of paper towels, but when she sees the rugged, flannel-wearing mascot for Burley Towels, she's instantly smitten. She even writes a fan letter to the company, and Homer, noticing her little crush, gets jealous. His solution? A prank. He calls Marge pretending to be Chad Sexton, the model for Burley, and says he'll come over for dinner. When the big night arrives, Marge is excited, until the door opens and it's just Barney dressed up as the mascot. Homer and Bart laugh, but Marge doesn't. Feeling guilty, Homer takes the family out for dinner and a show. That's where they meet a hypnotist, Mesmerino, who puts volunteers into trances for fun. When it's Homer's turn, Mesmerino regresses him back to his 12-year-old self. At first, it's harmless. Homer imagines himself at his old swimming hole with friends. But then he starts screaming, and he doesn't stop. The family rushes him home, but the screaming continues. At the dinner table, in bed, even at work. Lenny and Carl wheel him out of the plant because he's so disruptive. It's clear this is more than a stage trick. With the help of Moe, Lenny, and Carl, Homer tries to piece together the memory. He remembers hiking as a kid, camping under the stars, and the next morning, standing at the edge of a dried-up quarry. When he tried to figure out why the water was gone, he found something blocking the drain pipe. He poked it loose, and a body floated to the surface. The shock was so great that his mind buried the memory for decades. Now, they're determined to solve the mystery. Their search leads them to Mr. Burns' office, where the other end of that drain pipe is hidden. Burns admits the body was Wayland Smithers Sr., who died heroically stopping a meltdown at the nuclear plant. Burns, worried about bad publicity, disposed of the body down the hatch and told young Smithers Jr. his father died peacefully. The truth finally comes out, and while Smithers forgives Burns for hiding it, Homer is left with a memory he can't unsee, a grim reminder that even the silliest town in America has its dark corners. But our final story swaps hidden trauma for pure survival, as Homer and Bart find themselves lost at sea with no way back. Bart's adventure begins as usual with trouble. He and Milhouse are hanging around the arcade, pockets empty, bored out of their minds. That's when fate, in the form of a $20 bill Homer dropped, lands at their feet. Their plan? Blow it all on the ultimate sugar rush, a super squishy with extra syrup from the Quickie Mart. Apu warns it's never been attempted, but Bart insists. The result is pure chaos, a Broadway-style sugar high montage that ends with Bart waking up the next morning in a junior camper uniform with no memory of joining. At first, he's ready to quit. The activities sound lame, like bathing the elderly, but then he learns junior campers get a free pocket knife after passing a safety test. Suddenly, he's all in. Things take a turn when Ned Flanders announces the annual father-son rafting trip. Bart assumes Homer will never agree, but a mix-up leads Homer to say yes. Soon, Bart and Homer are on the water with Ned and his son Rod, and Homer immediately loses the map. What should have been a scenic trip turns into a nightmare. They take a wrong turn and end up drifting out to sea. Ned tries to row against the current, but Homer insists on relaxing, which only pushes them farther away from land. Hunger sets in, thirst sets in, and Homer makes it worse by eating all the rations, wasting the water, and unbelievably shooting down a rescue helicopter with a flare gun. Days pass. The four of them are weak, sunburned, and close to giving up. In a rare, heartfelt moment, Homer gives Bart a pocket knife as a sign of love, only to drop it, puncturing the raft. Just when all hope seems lost, the smell of burgers fills the air. They paddle desperately toward the scent, discovering a crusty burger built on an offshore oil rig. They've survived, barely. And while they make it home, it's a reminder that Springfield's dangers aren't always on land. From summer paranoia and murderous babysitters to false murder charges, buried traumas, and near-death at sea, these episodes prove that The Simpsons can be just as unnerving as it is hilarious. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones with ghosts or monsters. They're the ones that could almost happen in real life.